Welcome to the Empathy Avengers podcast, where we put empathy into action.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Empathy Avengers podcast. Today, we've got Fidelity from the Radicalized Truth Survives podcast joining us, and someone who's choosing to be known as NormieJoe, an IT specialist and expert. We're going to talk today about trolls, about what they are, how to deal with them, and if we can get them to stop. So, welcome, guys.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Welcome. Well, guys, why don't we start off with you just sharing a little bit more about yourself, and being that the topic is trolls. So what is your experience with trolls and how do you define them? And tell us a little bit about your perspective for that. Start with you, High Fidelity.
I was a troll from a young age in my early 20s. Back in the 90s, there was a website called Something Awful that I was a member of the forums. And we would go and troll other forum sites. Just go in, start fights, be weird, get people to believe crazy things. And it was fun. It was a game, right? And as time wore on and we left Something Awful and moved to 4chan, things got a little more serious. You know, we were able to troll stories into the news. We were able to troll people. I personally have a story of trolling someone so hard I had them running around London for 3 days, believing that I was in London while I was in Ohio. Trolling is, at its best, it's an art form used to mess with people's realities. At its worst, it is a terrible weapon that can drive people to suicide.
Wow. Thank you for that perspective. This is why you're here, because we're going to learn a lot from you and your experience. So NormieJoe, how about you? What is your experience with trolls and how do you define that?
That pretty much lines up with my experience. What HiFi was talking about there was trolls before Chan culture, I think they call it, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I mostly got involved around politics and environmentalism. And so I found that the earlier experiences in the late 90s and 2000s, the folks who were just kind of general harassers out there, and frankly, it was kind of funny. I saw some of the stuff that, going on out there, and I participated a little bit, but I didn't have time for that. It was pretty hilarious, some of it early on. It was like sitting around with my friends, smoking weed and, giving each other Charlie horses and dissing each other all the time. But that evolved later on and it started impacting politics. And that's kind of where that intersection that bothers me the most still to this day, and it is grossly evolved.
Is that how it evolved into like with Anonymous? How Anonymous became like a political movement and now has turned into really just a cult of personality.
They're still doing bad things behind the scenes. I mean, the main characters of it are still around. You've got, Andrew Orenheimer, you've got Aubrey Cottle, you've got Frederick Brennan. If you go back through history, right, like there's always been a trickster, right? There's always been a jester. There's always been a Loki. There's always been, the guy who throws the twist or the woman who throws the twist into the whole story and messes everything up, the chaos agent, right? There's always been that in human mythology. And what the internet allowed was for more people to engage in that kind of trickster behavior. And it wasn't really organized at first. And it was just kind of these little forums here and there. Then on the chance it came together. And when you talk about Anonymous originally started with Chanology. Chanology was an operation against the Church of Scientology, right? To mess with the Church of Scientology, to expose it as a cult, to get under their skin. And this was the first time that the internet had really been used like that to weaponize a global movement against a target. And then after Chanology, there came Gamergate. And Gamergate was when that same energy that had been turned against Scientology, which in my opinion was a good thing, right? I believe Scientology is a cult and it should be attacked. But in Gamergate, that energy was turned against women, specifically women in gaming and women journalists. It was a weaponization of misogyny that also expressed itself in the real world. Like these women were stalked, they had to hire security, death threats, rape threats. So the trolling went from something kind of good to something really bad. That if you look at what Unite the Right was, Unite the Right in
Hmm.
Charlottesville, that was put together on a website run by one of the members of Anonymous, Andrew Ornheimer. And that was the right wing trolling, but trolling so hard that someone ended up dead.
Mm.
So when you talk about the evolution of trolling, it started as kind of harmless online fun and pranks and evolved into murder. So that's pretty dark.
Very dark. And I think it's also evolved from just trolling. You even alluded about this to doxing, right? And swatting. Let's define those terms for our listeners.
So doxing is when you find someone's personal information, their home address, phone numbers, relatives, significant others, children, you find their social media profiles and correlate all of this information into one, document. And this
Reconnaissance.
doxing, here's a doc on this person, it's intel on this person. It is a vulnerability assessment. Where can we get to this person? Oh, here's their family members. Here's their kids. Where do their kids go to school? You can find out all that stuff. So that's doxing,
Right.
right? Is providing a dossier of intelligence upon a target. Swatting is when you actually use the police as an attempt to murder someone. You call the police and you say, I'm Joe Normie and I just shot my wife and I have a gun. Come and get me. Right. And then the police, they think you're serious. They show up with firearms. People have been killed during swattings. I mean, I know an individual right now who's been swatted by a police department over 48 times because he's attracted the attention of an organization of trolls.
I think it escalates, right? Because so trolling then leads to doxing, and once you've been doxed and your info is out there, then the bad guys are going to potentially start swatting at you and doing all these other crazy things, and the trolling will go up. So it does escalate.
Well, there's another term that your audience should probably be familiar with, and that is the term edge lord or edge lording. It's to see who can go one step farther. When your kids in grade school and one kid eats a bug, so the next kid eats two bugs because he's crazier, that's edge lording. That's taking it to the next step. And it always goes to the next step. And it keeps going and it keeps going, and tensions get higher and emotions get higher, and then things go bad.
So what is the point? Is this like a peer pressure thing? Like what is the point?
It's a game because reality is boring. In the minds of a lot of these trolls, this is just a game. This is just, I'm bored. I hate my life. I hate my circumstances. I'm going to see if I can mess up somebody else.
I mean, I used to play Ding Dong Ditch and maybe make prank calls back in the day because there was no caller ID because I'm old, and even TPing somebody's house and that kind of stuff.
So there are certain elements involved. A lot of it has to do with dopamine, right? A lot of these trolls get their kicks either making people angry or making people believe something that's false because then they can laugh at them. Ah, what an idiot, right? It gives them a pleasure response in their brain to do these things. And that stuff can be addictive. I mean, think about social media. People get addicted to social media because they're addicted to the likes, they're addicted to the retweets, right? Because that's the dopamine trigger.
Yeah, I see it's a feedback loop. My experience has been pretty benign when it comes to that kind of thing. But I guess what you're describing is more of, yeah, like a peer pressure, kind of an egging each other on and trying to one up each other that escalates it. Because I guess some people compare numbers of Instagram likes to their friends and try to get more likes than their friends. But from the troll perspective, it's like how much more hatred and viral vitriol can I spew out there, I guess?
Well, okay, so let's go somewhere very dark for a second, and I apologize, but if you really want to understand this, you're gonna have to know this. In most of the mass shootings that have taken place where the mass shootings have been live streamed, the comments are egging on the shooter. They're cheering for the shooter. They want a higher body count, right? And if the shooter dies, they're like, Psh, loser, right? Or if the shooter gets caught, they're like, Psh, what a lame, right? He's just LARPing. He gave himself up. He didn't die for the cause, whatever. It's been like that since Trolls made a video game of the Columbine shooting,
Oh, Jesus. I didn't even know
if you remember
no, I didn't
that.
know they did that.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing.
That's sick.
It's awful.
Really, what we're looking at here is we're looking at a failure of society to engage people who are less than the optimal, right? A lot of trolls are socially isolated, relatively intelligent, although I've met a lot of stupid trolls. Um,
Me
Socially isolated, don't have a significant other, don't have a lot of prospects in life, right? And instead of doing something to change those people, we let them have internet access. And this is the result.
Yeah.
what an incel is. It's involuntarily celibate. So not everybody knows that term.
You probably should define LARPing. Can you define LARPing, IFI?
Live action role play.
Yeah, LARPing is a live action role play. That's right. You're pretending. People at a Renaissance fair,
Right.
they're LARPing as, fantasy characters, right? Or as knights or Vikings or whatever. That's a LARP, live action role play. Chanology was LARPing a protest, right? But it was actually a protest. So then you get into that weird stuff. Does the LARP become reality? Because that line blurs the more you get into it. If everybody on the planet Earth decided to LARP the same thing, wouldn't that suddenly become our reality?
Oof.
Wow.
Do you
Now I really need to get high.
do you, do you want to help clarify the nuance between alternate reality gaming, perhaps, and this notion of if everyone, say, was going to do it and it suddenly becomes a real thing in the real world? Is there a way you would clarify that?
Yeah, my podcast co-host Jim Stewart does altered reality gaming. There is consent involved, right? The people know they're playing a game. There are guidelines, there are rules, there are gamekeepers where if you start going way off track, they're like, no, 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 back over
They're
here,
safeguards.
right? They define the boundaries. Yeah, they're safeguards. They define the boundaries of the reality. Trolling, disinformation, propaganda, psychological warfare. There is no consent. There are no safeguards. There are no rules. As a matter of fact, they want you to go as crazy as possible. And that's why QAnon led to so many different terrorist attacks because there were no rules, there were no safeties, and people lost their minds. And that's LARPing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Interestingly, my brother, who's like into AI and stuff, he for some reason is convinced that Elon Musk actually thinks that we're all living in a simulation. Is that a LARPing?
Well, here's what I think about Elon Musk. He once paid $250,000 in a pony for a hand
Oof.
job. So, opinions vary.
didn't he pay $44 billion for a social media company that was only valued at like 30 or something?
He paid $44 billion for a psychological weapon. That's
Yeah,
what.
he didn't care about losing money because it was
My
part of the
favorite
plan.
HiFi is he's called Twitter a $44 million psyop cannon.
Because that's exactly what it is. Anyone who is addicted to social media, who spends all their time on Twitter, they're gonna get sucked into the stuff that's being put out on Twitter. So that For You page is just quicksand for your brain, pretty much.
Absolutely. Although what's interesting is I dabbled back into Twitter just a few months ago after this administration started, just because I wanted to try to know the enemy and type stuff. I haven't picked up trolls because I'm new and nobody knows who I am yet. It's a little bit more interesting than like Blue Sky. Everyone's kind of vanilla in Blue Sky. We all agree, we all get along, everybody loves everybody.
Blue Sky is being created as an echo chamber for the left.
Exactly.
The same way Parler was an echo chamber for the right. It's the same thing. If you look at how society is being trolled by billionaires, you've got Elon Musk going the hardcore, give the Nazi salute. No, I wasn't really doing a Nazi salute. I was just he's trolling. He's lying. He knew exactly what he did. He knows why he did it. On the other side, you have billionaires like Reid Hoffman. And what was Reid Hoffman caught doing? He was trolling the Democrats down in Roy Moore's area by trying to make it look like Russia was helping Roy Moore. That was Project Birmingham, right? That was a troll. It was a psychological, political troll. They were attempting to break people's realities and make them think things.
So is trolling like the new digital kind of lobbying play? Where people throw money at a thing and hire a bunch of bots or trolls or what have you so that they can try to influence politicians to get or voters?
Not just influence politicians, but influence voters. The good thing is, I think people are slowly waking up that social media and the internet is not real life,
Right.
right? Stop giving credence to things people say on the internet, says the guy doing a podcast broadcast over the internet. Go figure.
Right.
More and more raising that level of awareness that don't take candy from strangers, right? Whatever information they're trying to stuff down your throat, you know, it's becoming a lot more visible and apparent when you have billionaires getting behind it and funding these characters. And I also just want to add that it appears as though this is sort of blending with the normal political types of activities that were going on, like opposition research. And it's basically where they go out and try to figure out how they can one up the opposition. And so there's been a kind of a mashup of those niche markets in politics where they've kind of merged together.
You're absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, here in Ohio, we have Dr. Amy Acton, who is running for governor, and we also have Peter Thiel's little friend, Vivek Ramaswamy, running for governor. I've been tracking networks of trolls and bots that are attacking Dr. Amy Acton, and you can go down through their follows and see who they're involved with, and you can practically trace them back to the companies that created them, and then figure out who hired them. And yeah, it's all coming Vivek, Musk, Thiel, right? It's all and they're really dirty too. They'll do things like I caught one network that was using the OSU logo, which is, like a stylized O with a Buckeye leaf, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a whole network of like 75 of these accounts that all they did was attack Amy Acton, nothing else.
Oh, they did that with Rebecca, what's her name? Geo Rebecca on Twitter when she was starting to move politically against Ron DeSantis. And she ended up with a whole bunch of trolls and was accused of buying followers, and it was a whole big thing. But yeah, I'm not surprised they're moving against a female doctor. And I think she's a public health doctor, isn't she? Dr. Atkin.
Yeah, she was the head medical person in Ohio during COVID, and she actually did a lot of good. Like she laid it out, she explained things, but the fact that she was science-based and we had quarantines and lockdowns and people wore masks and things like that. These are attack points for the right. So these bots and trolls are calling, lock down Amy, or, she did such terrible things to Ohio during COVID. She did her job. She did it well. But in this altered reality where these trolls live and these bots are, that's a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
It's an attack, but it's not really. The internet is not a real place, and people would do well to remember that.
Yes. That should be
The
our motto for this episode.
the campaigns, I guess what I was trying to say earlier, have all merged around these varying niche technologies, the PR, right? The dark money funneling, all that stuff is turned into this beast that our current laws can't be stopped.
There's nothing illegal about it.
Largely, no. I mean, you'd
That's the
really have to
problem.
show conspiracy, who's been putting key people in place to affect the outcomes of elections, buying social media sites to enable those people to affect those adverse changes. Frankly, that's not what people, I think, in America, if they knew about the gross underbelly, would want. And clearly, I don't think that we voted for this.
Well, so I've also seen it used. I've also seen it used not by an opponent, but by the candidate themselves. The candidate themselves hired a bunch of trolls to come after them
Oh, whoa. The
and then
black
played
flag
up
on
this
themselves?
big, I'm a
Oh,
victim.
brother.
Yeah,
They,
I'm a victim. Look at me fiercely defending blah, blah, blah.
And it was all
Right?
set up.
But it turned out that the PR firm they hired for their campaign was running the
oh
trolls.
my God.
Oh,
How do you
Yeah.
detect, how do you figure that out?
It, it's network analysis,
Yeah.
really. And Joe can attest to this. You start looking at who's doing the attacking, how they're doing the attacking. You look at their network of followers, retweets, who they follow, go down through. You find common nodes in the networks that are
Mm.
shared between all these little different accounts. And then sometimes I actually tell you, oh, yeah, I work for such and such.
Right.
Oh, okay, that's cool. You know, or you can like befriend them and get into their DM. Oh yeah, I'm gonna troll with you. Let me troll with you. It'll be great. And then you establish rapport and you start talking off of just social media, like maybe on a Discord server or something like that. And then eventually they'll let something slip.
They let something out. Interesting. Huh. Oh,
And it's espionage. It's political espionage
and
is what it's
it
called.
really
infiltration.
is.
Reconnaissance.
Yeah.
Reconnaissance.
Can you help our listeners tell the difference between a troll human and a troll bot?
9 times out of 10, if you insult the account, especially in a rude manner, if they don't answer, it's most likely a bot.
Right.
If they do answer, you could be facing an AI or you could be facing a human. You have to examine things like idioms in their speech because we know, I mean, look at the evidence that they supposedly had that Hillary was trying to leak the information on Trump. That was all made up by Russians, right? And the one idiom was throw more oil on the fire. Well, Americans don't say throw more oil on the fire.
True.
We say throw some gas, throw some kerosene, but we don't say oil.
Oh, oil on the fire was the tell. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's a Russian idiom, right? That's not American.
Right.
You look for types of speech. If you want to troll back, you can always make fun of misspellings or like incorrect of there, and there, or your versus your, which everybody messes up. Generally, if you can get the AI, you have different commands you can try to see if you can break the AI. And if they just keep responding to you, then it's probably a troll. Now the question becomes, is it a troll who really believes this? Or is it someone who's paid to be a troll?
Mm.
Right? Because those are two different types. And at the end of the day, what does it really matter? You're arguing with some account on the internet. So just block and
Yeah.
move on.
Fair. So is that what you do? You block and move on. Is that your recommendation, everybody?
People without my particular trollish background, yeah, probably.
Okay.
Would
Right.
be the advice I would give other normies that haven't been doing it for 25 years. Go back through their timeline, see what kind of responses they are, see where they try to sit on their political spectrum. Just do some basic analysis of their stuff. It's like spam, you're looking for the misspellings, the typos, the cultural irrelevance or relevancy. Those are kind of some things I do.
I
I go
think
back and
there's
look at the followers list is super helpful, especially when you think when they're a very adverse type of troll, right? Like they're being way too aggressive out of the blue all of a sudden.
Well, I think the most important thing for people to understand is that all right, so we know the internet is not real, right? The accounts you are interacting with may or may not be a person, may or may not be a paid person, may or may not be a sane person,
right.
might not even
Probably
be a
not a
person
sane
at
person.
all. Yeah,
Probably not a sane person.
When you go back to Twitter and you
yeah.
realize that it's 70% trolls, you really have to ask yourself, what am I really doing here? Why would I try to get my news from here because it's maybe slightly faster than the next social media site? You're not going to have a good time. Let's put it that way. No, there's hardly anyone there's that having kind of a good old time socially.
We should also talk about some of the hidden traps of social media because that's part of the troll too, right? When you're scrolling your feed and you see the video of the little kitten like playing or the little puppy eating and then falling over into the bowl, that's triggering dopamine in your brain. When you see those fight videos, and I'm sure we all see the fight videos because they're everywhere, those fight videos trigger neurochemical reactions in your brain too. Those are hidden traps. Like you don't even know you're being manipulated, but how many of us get excited watching the fight videos or we wince away or it's a provoked response?
One night I saw 30 fight videos of all black people, all particularly black people instigating. I I
Oh,
never watch those because I find them to be so disgusting, but that's exactly what they're trying to do is make a particular class or group of people look worse and then manipulate people's thoughts around that. So it's
the
pretty
same with
pretty
the
gross scene
police
out there.
body cam videos too. I've noticed a huge uptick in those.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't get any fight videos, but I do get the police body cam videos because I must have been interacting with those, especially during this whole, I'm in Los Angeles for my listeners to know. And so, especially since they ascended on our fair city and started rounding up brown people, I get a lot more of that. But I get the dancing, and I get a lot of protest music, and so I've trained my algorithm better. But this is more on TikTok.
Also, another thing that people need to realize is anything you post, anything you like, anything you stare at for too long, all of that is data that is being fed back to those companies.
Yep.
And if you know anything about a little company named Palantir, like they do behavioral data science and they're building a master database on all Americans with all your data. It's just filling that profile out.
Another thing that Palantir and Peter Thiel are working on is they're trying to patent mental health care using psilocybin. So yeah, he's got his fingers in everything.
That'll go right along with RFK Jr.'s mental health camps or whatever he wants to do. I think Palantir is sort of like Cambridge Analytica on full on steroids, right?
I wouldn't disagree with that because I'm sure they absorbed a bunch of the people from Cambridge Analytica. If there's one movie that people need to watch, it's on YouTube. It's called Data and Disinformation Investigating Cambridge Analytica.
Mm.
That really explains how people are targeted through social media. And it's really scary stuff. And I don't think enough people know about that. It was one thing for a bunch of teenage kids who are trolls to be trying to gather intel on their targets. It's a whole nother thing to have a massive corporation with its tentacles deep in the federal government gathering data to target Americans.
Well, and Palantir it has deployed facial recognition software I think they even worked on the J6 identification of those guys. And also they did something in Gaza with Israel to
Yeah.
identify people by facial recognition software. I've been at protests and had people walk by and like take photos of me because I had a camera.
One of the best ways to defeat facial recognition software, Adam Ant actually showed us the way. If you remember Adam Ant from Goody Two Shoes, he had the stripes on his face.
Oh, yeah.
Doing random stripes on your face of contrasting colors messes with facial recognition.
Good to know.
That's great. Thank you for the tip.
Cambridge Analytica, it's nice to have something that we can all reference, but they took kind of a specific angle of targeting religious folks who had vulnerabilities. They had some health information, and that's just one way that they could do it. And I think when people see that documentary, to keep in mind that just happened to be one angle of approach, but there's literally tens of thousands of ways that you can do those kinds of things to manipulate people when you have that kind of information. And with the information that Palantir and Doge has given Palantir now about all of us, we're extremely vulnerable as Americans to that abuse. What regulatory body are we going to leverage to go audit that company or its adjacent companies or its partners? If we had any
Well, until
regulatory
such
compliance to begin with, this not happened the way that it did with 20 somethings going in there and just ripping stuff out. That's not how you do it. A whole lot worse than people think. I wanted to add that on top of what you guys are talking about with Cambridge and stuff, because it's important. Regular people who haven't had to suffer through some of this stuff see it happen before their very eyes, recognize what we've seen, yeah, and understand it more easily. How do you go put that genie back in the box? You can't. You almost can't.
well, data ages out, and here's what we need to do. People need to start recognizing that their data is their security, their data is their privacy, their data is their lives.
Yeah,
Stop sharing it with your applications. Stop sharing it on your phone, right? Share it with your friends and your close family, but stop putting it up
Yeah.
online. The world does not need to see pictures of your kids. If you want to send them to friends and family, that's one thing. But even your email, if you're using a Gmail account, guess what? That's getting scanned, right? You're using an Apple iCloud account, guess what? That's getting scanned. People need to understand, and even more so, our federal government needs to understand that the data of its citizens is a national security issue. And until such time as that is considered, we're all at risk.
Yeah, Europe, the EU did a really good thing several years ago now. It was before the pandemic even started, I believe. They rolled out GDPR, Global Data Protection Regulations. I just happen to be working in a very rigorous regulated industry, which was running clinical trials for drug development. And you can bet that those patients had to be anonymized. Their privacy was of the utmost importance. It was interesting because there were things that we couldn't do in Europe that we could do in the United States. The US just has not caught up because our lawmakers are worthless. So we haven't protected.
Well, this is the problem with having, nothing but a bunch of business guys who see data as a commodity.
Yeah.
You've got elderly individuals in government who have no idea. To quote Ted Stevens, it's a series of tubes, it's not a dump truck. They have no idea what the internet is. They have no idea what it enables. They have no idea the dangers and, let's be honest, the progress that it offers.
Yeah. AI is good and bad. Mostly bad, probably, but some
Well,
good,
it's a tool.
some good.
And depending on what you use the tool for, like if I could build an AI robot that would wash my dishes, that'd be awesome.
I'd love that.
I don't need an AI robot to write me sonnets. We have human beings to do that,
Right.
right? It's a tool. What you do with it matters.
the United States, with the Citizens United ruling that came out, is ultimately what led to our inability, the lawmakers' inability to protect themselves. Section 230 was designed to actually protect people. It got reinterpreted as the opposite of that. And as a result, platforms have to do kind of the bare minimum to protect individuals. And it's largely non-enforceable. You can't go back to them. There's a few things out there that have caused us to be in the predicament that we're in.
Was it Estonia that was teaching in school their elves program, like positive trolling? Finland.
Finland.
Okay.
Finland was teaching about the trolls who could tell lies and like how you can't believe everything and not everything is real. And there was a group in Czechia called the Elves who were helping people understand what is real and what is not on the internet and how you can verify things and pointing out disinformation.
I think
Curriculum
that's
for my
I was
really,
kid.
going to say, how do we
I
start
want to
that
get that
here?
curriculum. Yeah,
we're gonna do that. Yeah.
we really do.
I need to take that class.
Me too.
Let's
No,
do
but
it.
that's really great. Great.
I think everybody has a little bit of troll in them. We all like messing with our friends and playing little jokes and pranks, and everybody likes to laugh. Its core, trolling trolling messes with reality. So if you got a friend or family who's MAGA, hey, what's up with those Epstein files, man? Just the little subtle trolls. Hey, what's up with Peter Thiel building a master database on all Americans? Is that cool? I'm pretty sure Palantir is the mark of the beast, right?
That or crypto.
Little trolls. Trolling for good. Trolling back. There are worse things you could do with your life.
Spoken from a true troll. Didn't you say once a troll, always a troll? HiFi?
Once always a troll. Yep.
From my perspective, as somebody who really has escaped the trolling, but please don't come after me now that if you hear that, I would say that hopefully listening to this is helpful and just understanding that they're losers trying to do whatever, get their own dopamine hits, and they're just like idiots. And so just ignore them, block them, move on. Just try not to let them get to you. Don't let them ruin your day and get in your head because they're just stupid. They're idiots.
The internet isn't real.
Yes.
The subtlety of it is a lot less like the jabs you get from old school trolls who were a lot more like 10-year-olds and 14-year-olds that grew up into a man child and are still sort of doing it, and they're just very refined. It's the more subtle things, the Cambridge Analytica type activities, the shifting of the narrative just slightly with the, a bunch of truth with a little bit of a lie flaked in there to get you to think a certain way. Those are the subtle things that happen that while we're consuming and getting frozen and unfrozen in our thought processes, those are the things that have the adverse impact. And so you just have to recognize that when you start feeling a certain way after, I call it doom scrolling or whatever it is you want to call it, trying to be social on these platforms, just put it down, take away the poison and go do something else much more meaningful in the real world, and you'll be a lot happier. I put mine down for several months in between the election ending and knowing that it was going to ramp up, and I would invariably want to involve myself in the ongoing. So I was a lot happier that I wasn't consuming that stuff.
It can absolutely be toxic and just fuck with your brain.
Hmm.
And so I say that as somebody who hasn't really had to experience it. I think you're right. It's easier. I mean, even if you know and you're aware that these are bad trolls, it's still going to affect you because it is psychological warfare, really. So take a break. Yeah, I think that's the best and move on and go
I'd say.
outside.
Have a little empathy for yourself. If you notice your brain getting a little wound up, put the phone down, put the screen down, go read a book, go get a donut, go ride a bike, go play catch, go mow the lawn, something. Anything but the screens.
And
Absolutely.
others.
Listen to the next episode of the Empathy Avengers podcast. That'll help you.
Yeah, that'll always help. Well, thank you guys for this conversation. I think our viewers are going to be a lot better off and a lot safer and a lot happier online. So thanks everyone for joining us for the Empathy Avengers podcast, where kindness is your superpower and empathy saves the day.
The Empathy Avengers, where we put empathy into action.